The dream of studying in Germany for free is changing. Some public universities are now charging tuition fees for international students. And in some cases, the fees can go up to thousands of euros per semester. So in this video, I'm going to show you where this is already happening, who is affected, and if this is going to be a thing all over Germany in the future. But before anyone panics, Germany is not suddenly becoming like the US or the UK. Most public universities are still very affordable and many students still only pay the normal semester contribution. But the semester contribution is not the same as tuition. It's usually just a few hundred euros per semester and it covers things like student services, administration, student representation, and sometimes public transport. But tuition is different. And this is what some German states and some German public universities are now introducing. So let me tell you what's happening right now. Now, the first major example is Baden-Württemberg, and this is one of the strongest university states in Germany. It has universities like Heidelberg, Freiburg, Stuttgart, Mannheim, Koblenz, Karlsruhe, and many others. But this is actually not a new case. Since the winter semester 2017-2018, Baden-Württemberg has generally charged tuition fees for international students from outside the EU. And the amount is usually 1,500 euros per semester at public universities. And this applies to many bachelor's, master's, and state examination programs, but not to PhD programs. Now, the state also has a separate second degree fee of 650 euros per semester. Now, to be fair, 1,500 euros per semester is still, much lower than tuition in countries like the US or the UK, but it is no longer free. So a 3-year bachelor's degree, this is about 9,000 euros in tuition. And mind you, that doesn't include rent, food, health insurance, the semester contribution, books, transport, or any other living expense. So Baden-Württemberg is the OG. It was the first case of tuition fees for public universities in Germany, and recently more and more other universities are following this trend. Now, the second major example is Bavaria. But this one is different from Baden-Württemberg. Baden-Württemberg has a statewide rule, but Bavaria allows universities to decide themselves whether they want to introduce tuition fees for non-EU students. And this makes it more confusing because one public university might be, tuition free and another university might charge extra fees. Now, the most famous example is TUM, the Technical University of Munich. And TUM is one of the most prestigious universities in Germany, especially for technical degrees. And starting from the winter semester 2024-2025, TUM introduced tuition fees for new students from countries outside the EU, EEA, and equivalent states. And for bachelor's programs, the fees are usually 2,000 or 3,000 euros per semester. And for master's programs, they're usually 4,000 or 6,000 euros per semester. Now, compared to the US, this might be low, but in Germany, this is actually a huge amount for studying. And again, this doesn't include living costs in Munich. Munich is already one of the most expensive cities in Germany. So TUM is still an excellent university, but for many students, it is now a much bigger financial decision than before. But before you panic, the interesting thing is that even within Munich, the situation is not the same everywhere. At TUM, students have to pay the tuition fees in some cases. But at LMU Munich, which is another major public university in the same city, this one doesn't charge tuition fees at the moment. Local and international students just pay the normal semester fee. And then you also have Hochschule München, the Munich University of Applied Sciences. And they do charge tuition fees from non-EU students, 500 euros per semester for bachelor's degrees and 700 euros per semester for master's degrees. So TUM, LMU, and Hochschule München all have different fee situations. So depending on the university, you might have to prepare for tuition fees or you might not. But one thing you should definitely prepare for is learning German. Because German is going to help you with part-time jobs, bureaucracy, accommodation, friendships, internships, and later full-time jobs. So if you're still at the beginning, you can watch my full video about the best way to learn German as a beginner. I'll put a link to it in the video description. Now, the Technical University of Munich is the biggest and most prominent example in Bavaria, but it is not the only one. Many Bavarian universities of applied sciences are also introducing tuition fees for non-EU students. TH Ingolstadt, TH Deckendorf, TH Rosenheim and TH Nuremberg, just to name a few. The important point here is the trend. If one university starts this and it works well, there's a chance that many other institutions will follow in the near future. Now, on top of all of that, the German state of Saxony also has selected examples, especially at some arts and music universities. Now, the main point is that you as an international student should not assume that all public universities follow the same rule. Germany is a federal country, which means education policy differs by state and also by university. But very important, don't confuse public universities with private universities. Many private universities in Germany charge very high tuition fees, and this is not a new thing. Private universities have always been a different category. In this video, I'm mainly talking about public universities, because public universities were traditionally the reason why Germany was seen as such an affordable study destination. Now you might be asking yourself, why is this happening? Officially, universities often argue that international students need more support with things like visa, housing, language, administration, career services, and integration. And that is not completely wrong. International students often do need more support than local students. But there's also a deeper reason that not many people talk about. Popular universities are under pressure in Germany. They receive more application than they can realistically handle. And universities like TUM are already massive, so tuition fees can also become a filter. If a university charges a couple thousand euros per semester, fewer people will apply, and this makes it easier for the university to control demand and manage capacity. And there is one more uncomfortable point. International education is becoming a market. Countries like the US, UK, Canada, and Australia have been charging international students high tuition fees for many years. And Germany was always the big exception. But now some German universities are realizing that they also have a very attractive product: respected degrees, strong research, good career opportunities, and access to a German job market. So the honest truth is, studying in Germany is not super easy anymore. It's becoming increasingly difficult and also less predictable. And the honest answer is, I do think this trend could spread further. Not necessarily to every university in Germany, and probably not overnight. I don't think Germany will suddenly become like the US or the UK. The German education system is still very different, and many public universities will probably remain tuition-free for most students. But for non-EU students, the direction is quite clear. You cannot simply assume anymore that every public university will be free. So don't choose a university only because it is famous, and don't choose a university only because it is cheap. Compare the quality of the program, the city, the career opportunities, the admission chances, and the total cost. I'm also going to keep you updated on this channel. And also, to prepare for Germany, watch this important video next. Love you and stay focused.